Hello everyone, I am the storyteller, and tonight I am here just to help you relax, to drift off to sleep by the sound of the waves, like the whispers of old souls. I know you have come to this video not just to hear the story, but also to find a deep, peaceful sleep. But before we begin, please gently like the video and subscribe to the channel so I can continue to tell you strange stories under the dim moonlight. Where are you from? And what time is it where you live? Just relax. Let your body relax. Put all your worries down by your pillow. Let me take you into a world of mysteries where the wind and the waves mingle, and unsolved mysteries are waiting to be told. Are you ready? O unholy night! Iceland's winter festivities are a perfect excuse to feast and make merry, and I partake with an insatiable appetite. I adore the endless nights wandering abroad and relish chance encounters with hapless stragglers trudging home. They all laugh when I tell them carol singing's not to my taste, and chuckle when I say choristers are delightful and sweet. But how their mirth dissolves as I envelop them in my cloak and whisper, "What a toothsome treat you are. You're good enough to eat." I despise summer, like all cold-blooded creatures, preferring a catatonic sleep to roasting in the sun. Every autumn, I anticipate the evening when Ingvar disturbs my estivation, and I return to a nocturnal lifestyle. He disinters my casket from the family plot every year during the first week of December. It's a tradition my loyal retainer has followed for years, just like his father and his father's father, ad infinitum. It's impossible to find reliable help these days. And so, despite Ingvar's poor social skills, I re-employ his services annually. Ingvar obeys my written orders to the letter on the pain of death. If not in this life, then his neck. Thwack, crunch. My mind basks in a dream state when Ingvar invades my solitude, hacking through the icebound earth above. Crake, skreek. I hear the shovel scrape debris off the wooden lid, and his doleful voice murmuring a tuneless refrain. The unsettling melody stirs my clouded mind like a moorland breeze whistling through gnarled branches. Its clashing dissonances offend my refined musical sensibilities and cause my heart to quiver and contract. Lub, dub, lub, dub, lub, dub. My constricted arteries dilate as Ingvar wrenches at the coffin nails with his claw hammer. His frenzied efforts cause minor explosions in the darkness, dusting the threadbare silk lining with clouds of grit. As Ingvar prizes open the ancient pine lid, my sensitive eyeballs roll upwards, avoiding the moon's inquisitive gaze. My rib cage twitches in a violent spasm as wheezing lung sacs inhale clean air. I choke and splutter before coughing out stale fumes that rasp my withered throat. like a rusty file. With each heartbeat, blood churns throughout my aching body, carrying oxygen to every cell. It's always the most painful part of my awakening. Pins and needles prickle each desiccated sinew, and every limb screams as it receives life-giving fluid. The blood returns to the heart after delivering oxygen, and my mind explodes with predatory thoughts anew. My throbbing heart sends the blood to lungs that strain hard to collect more air. I reflux and retch a pint of sticky phlegm from deep down. Ingvar is used to this unsightly reaction and tends to the detritus with a clean cloth. His caring touch is delicate and professional, and his face is unflinching. He lacks any sentiment. This is his business. Ingvar had strict instructions prior to my exhumation. He was to source a flask of fresh blood by whatever means necessary. The task never varies, but the source depends whereabouts I resume my existence. We're never in the same town twice, for obvious reasons. He's learned to adapt to my circumstances with undeniable efficiency. Ingvar has my best interests at heart, and he's also on the payroll. This winter season, he's moored our vessel in a quiet northwestern harbor outside Sudavik. It's an unassuming fishing town with a medical center and a venue for blood donors. Once on shore, he disguised himself and liberated a quart from their supply. It's a rich-looking concoction that will suffice for now. However, it's not the same as sinking my teeth into a warm jugular and slurping on the real deal. Ingvar steadies my quivering hands as I raise the glass container to my lips. I close my weary eyelids, and after a few sips, everything calms down. My sweaty palms dry out, and my prune-like fingers appear to elongate as my skin tightens. The sagging flesh under my jaw disappears, and my furrowed brow loses its careworn lines. At last, the throbbing pain behind my eyeballs dissipates, and my labored breathing settles into a regular rhythm. My once erratic heart beat chugs at a steady rate, and the queasiness in my stomach eases after a discharge of rancid gas. My rejuvenation is complete, and I rise from the coffin to assume my full height like a magnificent butterfly, casting off its shriveled chrysalis and unfurling its wings before flight. I nod at my retainer, and he tips his forelock and bows. I acknowledge his endeavors with a satisfied smile and survey the snowbound nightscape, glistening like an ocean of diamonds under the moon's bashful glow. Ingvar wafts his left hand through the air, shepherding me towards the waiting brougham with his outstretched right arm. Two majestic black drays snort white plumes from flared nostrils beside my handsome carriage. We take our seats as pristine snowflakes descend and settle on the bodywork's polished ebony. It's a fine welcome and a tremendous relief to be undead once more. The sight of my baleful old vehicle cantering through the small coastal town of Sudavik draws little attention. In previous years, the ominous rumble of hooves and creaking coach springs would herald an unfamiliar guest. But the inhabitants have other issues this year. They've entombed themselves within their homes, battened down their pine window shutters, and laced their thresholds with wreaths of protective herbs, ensuring plenty of garlics on hand. It should flatter me they fear the visit of a malevolent nocturnal predator. However, the precautions aren't for my sole benefit. The coronavirus's arrival has influenced behavior, and the government has enforced a lockdown. Ingvar understood there were unusual circumstances this year, but thought it prudent to interrupt my deep slumbers regardless. My initial reaction was one of joy. What better return could I expect than to discover piles of bodies waiting to be devoured? However, it transpires that the Health and Safety Department has issued an edict. Local undertakers are to dispose of the corpses through the crematorium. The local council is determined to sanitize the town and cleanse the region. I hadn't connected the hazy fog lingering above the coastline with the current climate of dread. Sudavik's furnaces are working overtime to dispose of the deceased. The impact on my festive plans is catastrophic. Citizens locked away in their homes until further notice. No bodies languishing on mortuary slabs waiting for morticians, and funerals performed in secrecy with the bereaved attending by Zoom. None of these scenarios bode well for a creature of my particular inclinations. I'll need to redraft Ingvar's commands with caveats that cater to similar events. A do not resuscitate clause should cover matters in the future. As for now, we'll retreat to the mountains, and I'll ponder the options. Iceland's 13 days of celebrations leading up to Christmas are a disaster for all the residents. Children won't be leaving shoes beside their open bedroom windows. There'll be no trolls gifting trick-or-treats this year. The authorities have banned the Yule lads' nightly visits. It's a bleak prospect all round. I have some tough decisions to make as we ascend to my mountaintop fortress. Most years, I'd prowl along local shores, searching for lonesome visitors and lost souls. My spirit descends into a quagmire as I contemplate the prospect of scouring isolated fjords for bilious vagrants and ill-kempt vagabonds. It seems unlikely that I'll quench my thirst this winter. The locals have barricaded themselves in their homes, and according to Ingvar, they're low on stock at the blood bank. As the days trickle past, the wind howls like a wounded banshee, and the ground hardens to rock. The snows gather in drifts, blocking our descent and jeopardizing my strategic movements. Ingvar spends his days grooming the horses, and at night he sips his supplies of Brennivin. Most evenings, he passes out from its effects, having buried himself under a mountain of furs. He knows his services are not required during these hard times, despite being primed to chauffeur me down the mountain on a whim. I've endured centuries of this existence. Life is relative, of course. It isn't a life most know. It's punishment for cheating death. Centuries of endless torture in purgatory. I'm cursed to roam forever, fearful of daylight, and all for a few drops of blood. I suppose it could be worse. There's a contagious disease in the vicinity. I guess it'd just be my luck if I contracted the coronavirus, wouldn't it? A year of coughing and wheezing inside my casket is inconceivable. The thought is most unappealing. And so, it's time to call it a night. Ingvar must enter my coffin until the epidemic's over. Maybe my luck will improve next year. Gertrude Inn. The span of my childhood could be separated into two categories: knowing and not knowing. In fact, everyone in my family, even the adults, could split similarly. Those who knew and those who didn't. Regardless of which category you fell into, everyone knew Grandma had certain proclivities. It was an unspoken thing, yet you felt how heavily it threaded into every conversation and side comment at family gatherings. No one really talked about it, not outright, but it was always there, lingering between the lines. The not knowing part of my childhood wasn't all blissful ignorance. Like the not knowing adults, there were always hints of restlessness whenever we visited Grandma's house of mirrors. That's what everyone called it. Though, to the public, it was Gertrude Inn, a quaint, 3-story, 100-year-old 10-bedroom house operating as a bed and breakfast, run by someone in my family since its inception. Despite how often she smiled, Grandma had this way of putting the house on edge. In a way, the inn was a reflection of her. Aged, unique, beautiful, but full of secrets. Everyone walked on eggshells around her, though I'd never witnessed her so much as raise her voice. She smiled warmly, yet her eyes held a cold indifference that felt like she was seeing right through you, guts and all. Gertrude Inn sat in darkness during the day, supposedly to save on electricity. One single window and a shining beam of light brightened the winding corridors on each of the second and third floors. Those single sun rays felt so lively compared to all the shadows, with dust particles dancing in the warmth. My cousins used to make a game of only trying to walk in the sun, lest your legs get snatched by some faceless monster in the dark. There was some speculation that Gertrude Inn was haunted. Creaking floors and dim lighting aside, people reported strange sounds at all hours. Some guests even claimed to see ghosts. The inn had its own cult following amongst supernatural enthusiasts, who who shared photos of specter light orbs and ghostly apparitions of small girls and old ladies online, because the old lady ghosts looked eerily similar to Grandma. It was widely accepted that it must have been the ghost of a woman in our family tree. But the thing that really made Gertrude Inn feel like a horror movie set was the mirrors. My great-grandfather built them, and over the last 100 years, the walls became filled, nearly every clean inch coated in aluminum reflection. That single sun ray from those lone windows on each floor bounced about, decorating the halls in a disorienting, masking glow. Around the time when I transitioned from not knowing to knowing, I gained a unique fascination with the mirrors. My cousins, aunts, and uncles liked to pretend they didn't exist. When we were delegated to help out around the inn, I'd watch the others stalk the halls ahead of me, carrying buckets of cleaning supplies and fresh sheets, never looking from left to right at the mirrors. Gazes fastened directly ahead, but I couldn't help but look back and forth, short as I was, fascinated by the different heights and styles of the framed mirrors around me, and how different and distorted they made me look, my face contorting and reshaping with each step. I liked to take my time in each bedroom when I cleaned, those walls equally covered in mirrors, making faces at myself and imagining someone else staring back at me. The year after Grandpa died, Grandma became more reclusive. One evening, my parents sent me to track her down, as she'd been missing since lunch, and it was long past dinner. Up to the 3rd floor, past the guest rooms, the further along I crept, the more the walls narrowed. A single sconce poorly illuminated the dark at each turn, but that one small light bounced off the mirrors, casting a dizzying glimmer. My reflection echoed all the way down the hallway, thousands of me watching back. Finally, I approached her room, and my hand shook as it clasped the vintage crystal doorknob, which spun loosely like it needed a repair, then pushed my way in. Her bed was made, complete with a crocheted white doily adorning an old quilt, another draped over a little red table, and a lit desk lamp that glowed beneath the stained glass lampshade. A soft humming caught my attention, but I couldn't tell where the sound was coming from. She wasn't anywhere in the tiny bedroom. I circled the space, trying to locate the source. The humming grew louder as I neared the armoire. I wouldn't consider myself a brave kid, but my curiosity was piqued, and no matter how hard my little heart rattled in my chest, or how sweaty my shaky hands felt, I pressed my ear to the closet door and listened. I gripped the metal handle, and the moment the door cracked open, Grandma's humming grew louder. Shoving dresses and shirts on coat hangers to the side, I stepped through a hole at the back of the closet. "Grandma?" I called out. The humming paused, then picked up again. I kept climbing, stepping over mounds of boots and boxes until I emerged into the brightest lit room in the house, and there were mirrors everywhere. "Hello, darling Mercy." Grandma gestured for me to join her, not the least bit surprised to see me. "What is all this?" I looked around in wonder at all the beautiful, ornate mirrors, some framed in elaborate gold filigree, some in thick, knotted wood. Grandma stood in front of 3 large glass panels, resting on a massive, open-backed easel. Paintbrush in hand, she elbowed me playfully. "How'd you find me, little bug? Is this how you make mirrors?" I looked around in wonder. Grandma didn't answer. Her humming resumed, as did her painting. I glanced down at the table and saw 3 identical empty frames, all silver, with intricate faces painted along the edges. The faces resembled cherubs, but their teeth looked more like fangs. Smiles distorted. I looked back at the glass she was painting and noticed something odd. "Grandma, how come you can see through these mirrors?" Her humming continued as she painted a silver metallic sheen on the glass. On one side, the silver allowed your reflection to stare back, but on the other, the glass was see-through, like a window. I wasn't a mirror expert, not like Grandma or my great-grandpa, but I broke a mirror when I was cleaning once, and I remember the backside being dark. You couldn't see through it like you could these. Grandma kept humming, and I was hungry, and that room creeped me out. So I shrugged and waved goodbye, reminding her my mom was looking for her. I dismissed the strange room, letting it remain tucked away in the recesses of my memory. Then, one weekend, I got assigned to room cleaning. We all took turns helping out at the inn, but it was more of a chore as I got older. The secrets of the old house held less interest for me. That is until I took a bottle of Windex into a room on the 2nd floor, spraying down one of the many mirrors, and I recognized the silver metal frame, intricately painted cherubs with fang-like teeth and distorted smiles staring back at me, the one-way mirrors. I tried to pull the mirror off the wall to look behind it, but was surprised to find it securely stuck. No matter how hard I tried to pull it off, it wouldn't budge. A cold chill ran down my spine as I recalled the secret room. That was when I realized there were 2 kinds of people in this family: those who knew and those who didn't. Grandma passed away a couple of years later, but still, I kept her secrets. My family argued about who would take care of the inn. It had been in our family for so long, no one wanted to give it up. But no one wanted to take responsibility for it either. Finally, they came to a compromise and decided to share the duties. So, one of our families would move into the inn each season to take care of the guests and keep Gertrude Inn up and running until someone stepped up and decided to take over the House of Mirrors. It was summer, when it was our turn. Mom and Dad claimed a bedroom on the first floor, and though no one wanted to sleep in Grandma's old room, I claimed it greedily. Gertrude Inn had a presence, a sort of sentient awareness, like you could feel her breathing. She tensed and held her breath, and so did I when I crept into the armoire that first night. I palmed the back of the old wardrobe, my hands sweaty as I searched for the secret knob. When I entered Grandma's secret room, it was pitch black. I stumbled around in the dark, seeking out the hanging lamps I remembered briefly from my only previous visit. But in my search, as my hands felt along the walls, I found another doorknob. My heart racing, I slowly twisted the tiny metal handle, the creaking sound like a thunderclap, considering the height of my nerves. My foot padded out ahead, testing the floor, and as both hands pressed against the narrow walls, I discovered a light switch. Though the light cast was dim, like everything else at Gertrude Inn, it was enough. Slowly, I stumbled into the corridor, merely 3 feet wide, between the bedrooms, floors creaking loudly beneath my bare feet. And then I watched in horror through the backs of the mirrors as guests slept the night away. I held every gasp and breath as my brain tried desperately to comprehend what I saw. A shriek tore out of my throat when I came upon a couple having sex, and the man stopped mid-thrust to whisper, "Did you hear that?" to his partner. My hand clasped over my mouth, terrified they'd know I was there, know what hid behind the mirrors. I turned around and ran back to the secret room. I turned off the light, banged my knee against a table in my rush to escape, and when I returned to my new bedroom, I stared at the armoire in screaming silence until the sun came up. It took hours to calm my racing heart, and in that time, I thought back to every interaction I'd ever had with my grandma. All the puzzle pieces and bits of memory I tucked away, slowly clicking into place. Walking over to a mirror, I stared back at my reflection until I no longer felt scared or uncomfortable. The following morning at breakfast, I watched my parents, not knowing, move around the kitchen in blissful ignorance, shaking cereal into bowls and discussing their days over morning coffee. "Mercy, you feeling okay?" Mom placed the back of her hand over my forehead, frowning. I cleared my throat. "Yeah, I'm good. Must have been a little weird to sleep in Grandma's room last night. No one would blame you if you decided to stay in another room. We can rework that one into a guest room." "No." Their eyes widen at my reaction. "Sorry. No, I'm good." Actually, it made me feel closer to her. And, I was thinking, she showed me once how to make the mirrors. I think I'd like to take it over, learn the family business. I shrugged and dug my spoon into the milky cereal, ignoring my parents' tight smiles. They don't want me to become like Grandma, even if they don't know precisely why. What I do know is that Gertrude Inn breathes for me, and I'll keep her secrets, maybe make a few of my own, every last drop. I enter Red Square from the south side. It's late. There's no one else around. My footfalls echo across the bricks. Then I spot him, a slender figure beneath one of the cherry trees outside Drake Hall. Silvery white hair pulled back in a ponytail. Black gloves, combat boots, a wool trench coat, the preferred attire of all psychopaths. I reach into my purse. In the next instant, he is standing right beside me. "Excuse me, miss." I pepper spray him in the face. He takes it stoically, with little more than a wince. I empty the entire can, but he just stands there, squinching like it's nothing but tepid water. Then he wipes his obsidian eyes clean with his gloved fingertips. I suppose I deserve that. I forget how fast we seem to you. Forgive me. I mean no harm. I will scream. You're Anika Chande, yes? From the physics department? Doctor, I say by reflex, sounding breathless. Who are you? Or what? Dr. Chande, forgive me, he repeats, extending a hand. My name is Sasha Volkov. I've read your books and all the papers you've published. Your work with photons is nothing short of brilliant. No pun intended. Thank you, I say flatly. I don't believe in auras, but if I did, his would be ice cold. I decline his handshake. I don't want my blood to crystallize in my veins. I'm hoping you will help me, he continues. You are perhaps the only one who can. I don't think so. His pencil-thin eyebrows pin together. You don't understand. No, you don't understand. You don't warp 15 yards across a plaza in the blink of an eye, demonstrate a superhuman immunity to capsaicin, and then ask for a favor. I see you're sporting a nice pair of fangs as well. That's very cute. Am I being punked? No, ma'am. He pulls a handkerchief out of his coat and mops his face with it. Although I have been told I look like Slavic Ashton Kutcher. I'm calling the campus police. Please, hear me out. Look, I'll show you. He walks into a beam of moonlight and vanishes. Not entirely. His outfit is still visible, but there's no one inside it. I start to deliver on my promise to scream, but the sound catches in my throat. The ludicrousness of the sight, the sheer improbability. I must be suffering a psychotic break from the stress of finals, or the sushi I had for lunch is causing hallucinations, makes me scoff and start laughing instead. Very impressive. Bravo. You see, the trench coat says, gloves raised in a gesture of helplessness. Somewhere along the way, our species developed this ability or disability, depending on your point of view, to disappear under direct light. That's why we're nocturnal. You might assume this gives us a natural predatory advantage, but it's actually incredibly frustrating. Imagine trying to eat a sandwich without being able to see your hands. And it's painful. The stronger the light, the more intense the discomfort. Is that why you live in Seattle? I snort. Because the sun is never out? Yes, exactly. Makes sense. I have a hunch. There may be some sort of interference at the quantum level between our body's atoms and solar photons. That's why we have no reflection and can't be captured on film. But the human mind can't abide the irrationality, so by rote, it forms a composite to make us appear whole. He returns to the shadows and rematerializes. A fancy illusion, just smoke and mirrors. Nothing to see here. No need for an anchor to drop into my stomach, or the hairs on the back of my neck to stand up. Nature had to find some way of keeping us in check, or we would have rendered you extinct by now. What do you want? I ask, wishing my voice didn't make me sound so fragile, so human. There was an article about you in the school newsletter recently. Thanks to a generous donation from someone who wished to remain anonymous, your lab was able to get a new quantum camera and an entangled photon detector. Volkov grins, his cobra-like fangs glistening even in the dark. I am that mysterious benefactor, and I want you to take my picture. Please stop messing with me. This really isn't funny at all. I'm quite serious, actually. We use simple objects for quantum imaging, like an emblem made out of gold and silicon. Not living beings. Well, according to your lore, I'm not really alive. Isn't that right? I grip the strap of my purse, certain at any moment I'm going to wake up in a puddle of my own drool at my desk, having fallen into a fever dream. Undead beings, then. The fact remains. You injure me, Doctor. I am not a zombie or a virus. My physiology is nearly identical to yours, with a few notable differences, of course. His stare is beyond unsettling. I cast my gaze towards the parking lot and keep it there in case he's trying to hypnotize me. It's very late. I need to be getting home to my family. He pretends not to hear me and carries on. I understand there may be challenges. That's why I'm asking you. You're the only one who can rise to the task. Mr. Volkov, whomever or whatever you are, I suggest you learn to take no for an answer. The first time, not the second or third or fourth. I stride away, making sure to keep my head held high, projecting indifference. Oh, come now, he says, voice dropping to an impossibly low pitch. I could just compel you to do it, but I'd rather you choose. This is an exciting opportunity for us both. My legs grow heavy. against my will? How is he doing that? I stop in my tracks, my heartbeat rising rapidly into my throat. A mysterious gravity pulls me back in his direction, like my subconscious has staged a coup. I swallow against the growing certainty that this is actually happening. Only a monster would fail to see the false dichotomy of his proposal. All right then. Fine. In the lab, I keep the overhead lights off. The light from the monitors will have to suffice. As soon as we're inside, Volkov makes a beeline for the oversized Faraday cage one of my students built as part of her thesis. Like he knew it would be here, waiting for him. What material is this lined with? He asks through the open door. Aluminum foil. Ah, why? Worried it was silver? The muscles of his jaw twitch. No, that's another myth. Along with aversion to the crucifix, garlic, and wooden stakes. Nothing but superstitious nonsense, which, if I'm honest, I find rather insulting. I see. It's going to take a while to get everything prepared. I can wait, I hear him say. Except his lips didn't move. Much like your ascetic monks, we are capable of remaining motionless for protracted periods of time. Even when speaking into my mind, he sounds like a robot. Stop that. I don't like it. It's invasive. Forgive me, he says for the millionth time. But at least it's out loud. I set to work calibrating the laser with the beam splitter. Then ensure the quantum camera is in position to catch all the action. Once the photons pass through the vacuum chamber and into the Faraday cage, they will entangle with Volkov's atoms, or won't, if there is indeed some sort of interference. Then the beam will be rejoined on the other side by a sensor. The high-precision spectrometer, along with the computer program on my laptop, will gather and interpret the data. You do understand that should we manage to get an image, it's going to be little more than a ghostly outline, right? Nothing like an actual photograph. When was the last time you saw your reflection, Doctor? In the bathroom, after class. I've never seen myself at all. Not in the surface of a lake, nor the glint of an eye, nor a darkened pane of glass. You cannot cast a shadow if you are never in the sun. I've commissioned sketches and paintings, of course, but it isn't the same, is it? I've never seen a real, tangible image of Sasha Volkov. He pauses. Because he's so still, I can't tell if he's battling with something or just going dormant. Can you imagine how that feels? To have so little confirmation of your very existence? I mean, I teach for a living. I shrug. I wonder how many people he's fed on. How many pints of blood he's drank. Thousands, he says, reading my thoughts again. Why is that relevant? I asked you not to do that. I can't help it. It's like asking me to ignore a blaring car alarm. If you want my help, then you can try. He doesn't move. Yet I feel his irritation growing, as though he's funneling his feelings directly into me. How many animals have you consumed in your lifetime? How many cows, chickens, fish? I'm vegan. Have been since 2006. Figured you would know that. The point is, you don't think of your food in those terms. Would you castigate a lion for feasting on a lamb? It is the way of things. We have been with you since the beginning, in the shade of your monuments, co-evolving. Nature designed us for a singular purpose, to cull the human herd. But as you can see, we're doing a piss-poor job of it. There's more of you than ever. In a surprising, potentially deceptive twist, I feel his emotions sink into self-pity, like he believes, ultimately, it is he who is the victim. Aren't your kind just humans who've been bitten and turned? Like Lestat and Louis, his irritation blooms into full-blown disgust. Ridiculous. Can you turn a chimpanzee into a Homo sapiens? We reproduce the same way you mammals do, via fornication and pregnancy. We are warm-blooded, after all. It's just not our blood. It doesn't originate from our bone marrow. His anger cools a few degrees, and he adds, I have never been human, but I have lived. I have seen wonders and horrors you cannot begin to fathom. We have our own society, tucked away in the nooks and crannies of yours. Our own ambitions, too. Glad for the change of subject, I announce. We are ready to run our first trial. Please stop talking now and remain stationary. Volkov shuts the door and settles in. I click on the laser. The beam is split and sent into the cage. The hum of the machinery comforts me, brings to mind the many students who've used it to embark on their first voyage into the realm of the subatomic. The inevitable look of rapture when they finally see the particles they've spent so long reading about. In the midst of this rumination, I realize it's providing a kind of psychic cover. My subject is occupied, the grip of his influence weakened. I slip a ballpoint pen into the pocket of my blazer and pray he doesn't notice. We run 6 trials in total. The whole process takes a little over 2 hours. Once it's finished, I take a screenshot of the results and send it to the printer in my office. Volkov exits the cage and joins me, and once it's printed, I hand him the copy. He accepts it like it's his birth certificate. Like I said, pretty grainy, but it worked, he murmurs. His fingers trace over the grayscale form, caressing it. He is totally transfixed. I feel his heady mixture of elation and awe, the vanity that coils around his heart like a serpent. It's me, he whispers. You got what you came for. I need to get going now. My family will be worried. Volkov gives me the side eye. Surely you know by now that lying to me is pointless. I don't know what you mean. If I don't get home soon, You live alone, Doctor. Have since your breakup with Paul. You don't own any pets. Nothing that depends on you for its survival. Not so much as a cactus. Your younger sister calls to check up on you every so often, but not often enough. He sounds bored with the subject, preferring to pore over the printout with the intensity of an art appraiser. Is there anything else your system picked up on? I push aside the sense of betrayal and shake my head. The emissions analysis produced a string of errors that would seem to confirm your hypothesis of some kind of interference, as no entanglement occurred in any of the 6 runs. But it would take a much more thorough experiment to isolate the actual cause of that interference. I see, he says, licking his chops. No matter. Still a tremendous success. Unable to help myself, I blurt out, "Are you going to kill me now?" He blanches. He's probably manipulating me, but I can feel the sting of hurt feelings in his chest. Of course not, Doctor. You have me all wrong. He clutches the printout in both hands and peers around the lab, taking it all in. I want you to study me further. Enlist the help of others, if need be. People we can trust to test my DNA and take blood samples. Think about it. If we can produce more results like this, you can publish them. These findings will fundamentally alter the world's understanding of biology and quantum mechanics. And what might that do for your career? When I don't say anything, he continues, it's time Homo sapiens learned they are not so alone as they imagine. It is time for us to evolve beyond the predator/prey dynamic and work together. We have to do something before your species gets us all killed with your utter disregard for the health of this planet. His eyes land on me. Despite his words, I feel sick to my stomach, because in his zeal, he's accidentally let slide a few of his memories. I see his first kill at just 4 years old, hunting with his father in the streets of Quebec. The elderly homeless man bundled up in a doorway, the pale, mottled flesh of his throat, the profound hunger, 1,000 times stronger than any I've ever experienced, an insatiable need. The man awakens and finds himself immobilized by Volkov's father. Fear pours out of him in a thick stench. His final thoughts are filled with deep regret. He's struggled so hard for so long, endured so much, and survived on so little, only to meet his end as some night creature's meal. And little Volkov loves it. Every drop of remorse, every pitiable whimper, every dream. He feeds on them along with the blood, gorges on the man's life force until he's full as a tick. And his father says simply, "Good." I see his most recent kill from earlier in the night. Stephanie Albright, the student who made the Faraday cage. He broke into her dorm and drained her in her sleep. She died and never saw it coming. Volkov looks at me now. He knows that I know. Don't, he warns. I jam the ballpoint pen into his chest. My aim is perfect. It lodges between the ribs slightly, to the left of his sternum, and hits something hard, catching when he takes a breath. He growls at me. I told you that wouldn't work. Then I'm soaring through the air. My body collides with the quantum camera, shattering it against the wall. I land in a heap on the floor, sparks raining down around me. Pain shoots up my spine. The wind knocked out of me. Volkov is on top of me in seconds, his weight like a 1,000-ton hydraulic press. There is no further possibility of fighting back. Do it then, I hiss at him. I will not be like the man in the streets. I will not go to my death without dignity. If he's going to eat me, let him taste nothing but pure hatred. Do it, you fucking parasite. He flinches again. I feel his emotions fan out in a kaleidoscope of rage, disappointment, and woe, beneath which is a childlike longing for my approval. He can't hide it now that I've seen it. His need for recognition that washes over me in waves. It's nearly as overwhelming as his hunger, an insecurity born of being raised with no mother. We could have done important work together, he says, voice choked with repudiation. Remember that, then he's gone. His presence peels away like a bad dream. The overhead lights turn on. Dr. Chande? Asks Officer Thompson. He's standing in the doorway, holding a nightstick. The school won't let him carry a gun. Everything okay in here? Shakily, I get to my feet and survey the damage to the lab. Other than the broken camera, all the equipment is intact. There's no sign Volkov was ever here, except for the image on my laptop. I'm okay, officer, I say, but we need to send the local police to Stephanie Albright's dorm room. There's been a homicide. Gripping his stick closer, Thompson asks, "How do you know that?" I stare at the screen. Its spray pattern of photons in a vaguely humanoid shape. The world's first evidence of the supernatural. But it could be anything. No better than a UFO sighting or a blurry photograph of Bigfoot in the woods. I clear my throat and glance at the officer. In the wake of Volkov's influence, my emotions come flooding back with a vengeance. Hot tears spill down my face. I clear my throat and remind myself, no matter what I experience, I am a scientist. Call it a hunch,